Hi everyone, Dr. Joe Thorogood here, and welcome to Remarkable. This week's video is going to be about referencing and citations, something you really should have nailed by the end of your first year of your degree. As we get into second and third year, if you still can't do this fundamental skill, this basic thing that we need to be able to do in academia, it's going to get you in a lot of trouble because really we're looking for good citations, and I am coming across students who are still in their second and third years not quite nailing their referencing. This video is going to give you a brief overview of what you can do. Now, your institutions should have guidelines, documents that tell you which referencing systems you're using, if they've got any variations on them. My own institution of Coventry has a variation of the Harvard system, they call it CU Harvard. That document is there online for students to see as and when they need it. It's a huge document that tells you how you can cite absolutely everything you need. But today we're going to go through just some of the basic things, common errors that students make in their work. One of my roles at Coventry is I'm an academic misconduct officer. This means I investigate bits of work that have been accused of plagiarism or cheating. And sometimes I come across bits of work where it's very hard to tell if someone is deliberately cheating or they just don't know how to reference properly. That's not a great position to get yourself in, so learn this really important thing quickly, get it down in your first year, and then you just don't have to worry about it for the rest of your degree. Some of the errors that students make are very easy and quick to fix, and I am going to go through them on an old piece of work here that I submitted in my first year of my undergrad. Again, this is not a terrible bit of work in terms of referencing and assignments. There are some small errors here that might drop me a few marks, but by and large it's okay. But again, easy to fix problems that I'm just going to show you now. So the question was about discussing the relevance of geography in the 21st century. We don't really need to focus on the question today, we're just looking at the referencing. You can see here, the first reference comes down here where it says for Harvey. I've put the 1974 next to his name in its own brackets, and I've removed the reference down here that says Harvey 1974. That is a perfectly legitimate way to do referencing. Students tend to think that the referencing style is very fixed, that everything must be within the brackets. It's not the case. If you just want to put the name and then the date, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do as it improves readability, which is what I've done here. Next we have BBC. So the BBC reference I have here is for an article that was written in 2008. Now, we often have questions about when you shouldn't use an author and when you should use an author that is an institution. The general rule that we have is that if the article, report, whatever it is you're trying to reference has named authors, then you should use them. If it doesn't, then you should use the institution name. So if I just load up the document that I cited, it's a BBC News article, there is no author on this document. So using that rule, I'm just going to put BBC down. As we go through, we can see some of these are fine, Dorling and Shaw 2002, but you can see just down here, I've got one that says et al. And in press. Now, I'm going to delete the in press because when I wrote this essay in 2011, this article wasn't yet published, which means that there wasn't a date, so the correct thing to do was put in press. Since it has been published and I now have the date 10 years later, I've been able to put the date in. And if I just scroll my way down to my bibliography and we look at the Cook et al. Reference I have, you can see that I have also made that change there from in press to 2011. Just making sure that when you make changes in your text citations, you also apply those changes to your reference list at the end. If we just look at the next reference, we have a reference to Buller. So the sentence did read, Buller's work on the ethics of the food we consume, Buller 2010, are both relevant. But again, I can save words by just putting Buller's 2010 work. So that's saved me a little bit of time as well. So that's been fixed, and I'll just tidy up that bracket there. And there we have a nice, quick and easy reference. And this is an interesting one here. So this reference here, I put in the name Harley, but I hadn't put a date, and I hadn't put anything in the reference list. If I scroll down and show you, you will see that the name Harley doesn't actually appear in that reference list. Now, I have a choice. I can either go and find that article, which I can do here just by clicking here. So here I've used Google Scholar, which is an excellent website for checking your references and citations. And I found that reference I'm talking to, that's deconstructing the map. If I want to use that Harley reference, I have to find it and include it in my work. One of the simplest ways to do that would be to go to Google Scholar, find the Harvard reference, which is the variation that we use at Coventry, and I just know that the reference applies. Take that and add it to my assignment. So then I take Harvey, copy and paste him, and I'll put him in the appropriate place, which is going to be before Harvey. There we go. There is the reference included. If I move back up to where we found Harley, I can then now change all of this so that it says Harley, and then I can put the date in. I have forgotten that date, so I'm just going to check it. 1989, a slightly older reference. So that's now a correct reference, and I can delete that. What I could have done is got rid of the reference entirely. It's better to take out a reference if you can't find the citation. Lots of students do this, I've done this, but sometimes they make a reference in text and forget to add it to their reference list at the end. You haven't properly cited it, and in that case, you're probably going to get pulled up for it because it is not what we asked you to do. So in those instances, find the work or delete the reference. Okay, next we're moving on to this one down here, a quote. Okay, now I have such a problem with students not giving page numbers for quotes. It seems to happen across the different years, third years, second years, and it's a pain because it means you're not referencing correctly. If you are going to quote somebody, you need to supply the page number. What I usually hear back from students is something along the lines of, well, there was no page number. Okay, well, go and check what your reference list, your reference guidelines tell you to do. Often, they will tell you that if there is absolutely no page number, you should put NP, which stands for no pagination. Usually there is a page number, and you're either just being lazy, or you're not looking in the right place, or you're looking at a document that's not the correct version with the page numbers if it's an academic source. So I don't accept students who come to me and say, I looked for a page number and I couldn't find one. Even if that's the case, you haven't learned the referencing rules, which are to put NP. Now again, check with your own institution's guidelines as to whether that's what you do, but I am not accepting no page numbers for quotes. The excuse that I just couldn't find it. It's not a valid excuse. So here I have taken away the brackets around skull, and I've just put them around the citation again, tidying things up a bit. Got a perfectly good page number there for my quote. And as we move down here, I've done the same again for the thrift reference. So I've taken the 2002 and the thrift from the bottom, deleted them, and just added them next to the author's name. And now I want to talk a little bit about referencing software. So referencing software is just a piece of software that you can download that will allow you to organize your materials and directly input them into a document, and also directly input a bibliography. Now, if you're hearing this and your ears are pricking up and you're thinking, my God, I didn't realize there was stuff that would do my referencing for me, there isn't. These things inevitably go wrong. The one that I use is called Zotero, and while it's a great bit of software, it never gets it quite right, and the referencing styles that it offers me never quite conform to whether the journal article standards that I need. Perhaps some people can make it work perfectly using different bits of software, or perhaps using Zotero. It's never perfect for me, but it is useful, and I just want to briefly show you how to use them. So let's say that I'm really enjoying reading a scholar's work and I want to add it to this essay, and I've decided I want to cite them, but I can't be bothered to go and write them out myself or find them in Google Scholar. Well, I've installed Zotero. You can see the word Zotero here up on my screen. All I'm going to do is find that scholar's work, and I can show you that scholar's work here. His name is Alex Hastie. He's a colleague of mine. Really enjoyed reading his stuff. I've put his work into Zotero. So all I've done is installed it in my browser. I just click here. That saves the work. Or what I can do is go directly to Google Scholar, where I've got his work as well. There's his paper, and I've just clicked on it. And I'm going to click on the citation here. So just to show you how that works, there's the paper. If I click on these quote marks, it gives me a list of the different styles it can be cited in. Now I could copy and paste this into my essay if I wanted, but I'm going to use my referencing software. I'm going to take EndNote. It says saving to my library. Now I know it says EndNote. That is another piece of referencing software, but if you click on that EndNote link, it will also load into Zotero, which is the one that I use. Then I just go back to my document. I click on Zotero, and then I put add edit citation. Now when you first do this, it will ask you for all sorts of things about the style you want, the style of document. I've already done it for this document. Just going to type in hasty, and there is his work. Because I've checked it before to make sure that it actually did download to Zotero, it appears twice because I've now downloaded it twice. Press enter, enter again. Alex Hasty's work is now in my document, properly cited, and let's say I just want to add it to the reference list. And click here, and I would click insert bibliography, and there it is. You could do this as many times as you like for your work, but I want to immediately point you out a problem. There are no brackets around the date of the author's work. It's also given his full name, whereas if you look for my other references, it's only given the first. This sort of thing will happen to you time and time again as you use referencing software. It will do small things slightly wrong, and you'll have to go through and check them anyway. I am sure if you get really familiar with Zotero, if you spend a lot of time learning how to use it with EndNote, all of these bits of software, you can avoid those problems. But frankly, for me, I don't find them all that useful. Some people will, nothing wrong with using them, but these things will only help you do the tasks that you have to do anyway. They don't do them for you, and you still need to know what you're doing to make the best of them. So before you go and download these things, pay a lot of money for them. Some of them will charge you. I don't think you should actually pay any money for these things at all. Lots of institutions have subscriptions to programs like EndNote. Check if they've got these subscriptions. Zotero is free up until the first gigabyte of storage you use or something. Before you go and start putting all your eggs in the reference software baskets, just make sure you know that they're not going to solve all of your problems. You'll still have to tidy little things up like the things I've just pointed out there. Okay, so that's referencing. Now, before we leave, I just want to give you a few takeaway points about referencing, okay? As a marker, minor errors in referencing are not going to result in you failing, right? They're not going to result in that, but they are going to show a lack of understanding of a key academic skill. So that's why it's so important that you get referencing right. If you've got a colon instead of a semicolon, or you've missed a full stop, or one of the author's names is missing, that's understandable. This is a tricky thing to get right. But if it's a consistent problem, for example, not using page numbers, that is going to start hurting your marks because it shows that you're not understanding the task you need to do. If you're not sure about how something should be referenced, you've got a few different options. You can check with your lecturer. I've had students email me in the past asking me about how to reference something. You should check your institution's style guidelines that I referred to, or you can just use your common sense. And that often is the best thing to do. If you can't get an answer about something, just give as much information as possible as you can to it and make sure that it's clearly accessible. If you go down to my reading list here, you can see that I haven't done it for this piece of work, and everything in red are things that I've added in. So here I've missed the institution's name, I've missed some of the information on that journal article, I've missed the website address for this Guardian article, missed information here about that journal article. This sort of stuff is hard to pick up, and it's worth double checking. And if you're not sure about how to do it, check and just use your common sense. Provide as much information as possible. The point of referencing is to help somebody find the document you've used. So if you're giving more information, you're making their search easier. Reference as you go. Do not leave it till the end. You will miss things, you will not find things, you'll forget where that source came from and whether it was Paul Phillips or Peter Phillips who was the author, and you'll forget the year. Just every time you want to add a source to your document, stick it in the in-text citation and then immediately add it to the bibliography. Google Scholar allows you to do that very quickly, and if you can't find the document for whatever reason, just write it out. It doesn't take that long, and then it's done and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Final point, referencing software, whichever one you opt to use, will not solve all of your problems. It can make your life easier provided you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's still going to cause you problems, and it's still going to cost you marks. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Remarkable.